force, but just how we're going to begin this 2-week-long safari adventure of ours. That's correct, we are scheduled to be out here for the next 2 weeks. Although Hakuna is having no worries, those 2 weeks sure will likely fly by so fast. It'll likely feel an awful lot like 20 minutes or so. Let's begin our journey out here in the Little Laturi Forest. It is an area where the animals are excellent at camouflage and staying hidden, so it does often take an incredibly keen eye to spot them. Do you see coming up ahead of us here on top of the rocks? It looks like the famous black rhinoceros, also called the black rhino. And the black rhino does actually weigh in just to about 3,000 pounds. And it's also got a charging speed of up to about 35 miles per hour, making me very glad that it is not interested in charging at us at the moment. Also, on top of this hill here to the right, you might see two beautiful black and white birds with an orange bill, known as the saddle-billed stork. A name they get because their orange bill is shaped similar to an English-style saddle. They can stand at heights of up to about 5 feet tall, making them pretty tall birds. Also have a rather impressive wingspan, which can stretch up to about 9 feet long. For reference, it's about the same length as that of the canopy currently up above your head. Coming up here to the left-hand side, you're going to find some beautiful reddish and purple horns called the bongo, just like the drum. Both male and female bongo have horns that allow them to stay hidden as they run through the cover of thick bushes and foliage. Now we're going to head on out of the Little Laturi Forest, so that we are still going to continue on this rather lengthy journey of ours. And of course, by continue, I mean we will continue on into the Sapi River. There I can already see some beautiful white birds with gray feathers out here known as the pink-backed pelican. And these pelicans out here get their name from a pink color on their back, which extends to their extremities during their mating season. Now they are colonial nesters, meaning both the male and the female pelicans form the egg together at the same time, which is something I for one feel is very, very romantic. Now in the water on the left-hand side of us, you'll find the famous Nile hippopotamus, also called the hippo. And the hippo does weigh in up to 5,500 or 5,500 pounds, making them one of the heavier animals on the Harambe Wildlife Reserve. In fact, a group of hippos that you see in the water on the left is called a float of hippos. The hippo does, of course, spend most of their day submerged under the water. Something they do because unlike you and I, they don't exactly have sweat glands, so of course they are unable to sweat. Of course, the only way they have to stay cool is simply being submerged under water throughout most of the day. I do see coming up here, looks like we found the famous Nile crocodile to the left. And the crocodile does grow length up to 16 feet, that's on average about 12 to 14 feet long. We also go to weight of up to 5 tons of pounds. Should be around 1/10 or 10%. The weight of the hippo. The crocodile is known as one of the strongest bite forces in the animal kingdom. Like those jaws of theirs are powerful enough to chop down with enough force to allow the people to have their body weight in a single feed. In fact, those are just a few other reasons I would encourage you to never spot at a crocodile. And now it looks as though we're making our way here into a change in the foliage, indicating that we are now getting a little bit closer to the savannah. In fact, I think it might be time for us to go ahead and just slowly make our way down into the savannah proper. And we're going to try to see if we can't get a real nice up close and stop it with a very personal view of each and every single one of all of these awesome and amazing animals who use the wide open spaces of this savannah as their home. First up, off to the right, our immediate right-hand side, you'll find some smaller antelope. This will look like gazelles or impala. Those are called the springbok. Now, the springbok get their name from how they spring into motion. They can leap forward up to 13 feet. They can also hop up and up to 6 feet into the air. Although when they do so, there's neither called a hop, jump, leap, skip, or spring. It's actually called a pronk. Now, one of those little springbok that we saw was right at the top, they are incredibly quick. They can do so at roughly 60 miles per hour. So let's say they're about as quick and that's about as they're adorable. Coming up here on the right side, they're going to find up here on their right the famous and Colby cattle. Let's go with Tusi cattle. Named for the Tusi tribe when we first discovered them. If I say it is actually one Tusi here to the right. And the horns on its head, they look very large and very heavy. They're actually quite light and honeycombed on the inside, allowing the blood to flow through their horns, thus allowing them to stay cool on hot days, acting sort of like the radiator in your car. Also here to the left-hand side of us, you'll find some beautiful reddish antelope with curved horns known as the sable antelope. Now, the sable antelope have special significance to the Harambe wildlife reserve. That's because we use them as a symbol of our reserve. Those are some of the most protective of all antelope species, as they typically will sit and stand in a circular formation with their horns facing outwards, so as to much more easily protect themselves from predators. Now, it does look like we're going to see coming up ahead of us here the tallest animal on the savannah. That, of course, would be that of the giraffe. Now, if we were to take a close look at the pattern on any of these giraffes out here to the left, you might notice the edge to each individual pattern is actually very sharp and very jagged. That's how you can tell they are the Maasai species of giraffe. Now, each pattern on a giraffe is unique to the individual giraffe, as in fact no two patterns are the same. It's sort of like our fingerprint. Of course, the giraffe is only the single tallest animal on the savannah. They can stand at heights of up to 20 feet tall. That's on average of 16 to 18 feet tall. That's roughly 6 feet tall when they're first born. Now, a female giraffe does give birth standing up. So yes, it does mean that a baby giraffe or calf will have roughly a 6-foot giraffe to the ground when they're first born. I would say the first thing that a baby giraffe feels is likely gravity. Although not to worry if that drop does happen to provide a bit of a boost to a baby giraffe's limbs or respiratory system. So I guess it works out okay for a baby giraffe in the end. Coming up here on the right-hand side of us, we're going to find a bit of a small dazzle. That would be a small dazzle of the Hartman's mountain zebra. Now, the Hartman's mountain zebra is actually one of the smaller species of zebras. Also, thicker stripes on their hind quarters than that of other zebra species, which does in fact allow younger zebras to tell apart their moms from other zebras in the dazzle.
So funny.
But of course, now it looks so here momentarily. We are going to be making our way here into the Tembo's territory. And that word Tembo does in fact happen to be a Swahili word for another very famous animal. This animal does happen to be very, very famous for being very, very large and also very, very heavy. In fact, it tends to be so large and so heavy, it should honestly be kind of hard for us to miss. Unless, of course, it's doing an excellent job of hiding, which is always possible, although it does look unlikely. As you count the Tembo coming up ahead of us here to the right. That's right, the Tembo would in fact be the Swahili word for elephant.
What do you see? Oh, look at that one grabbing stuff.
These elephants out here do happen to be that of the African elephant. Of course they are. We are in Africa after all. That would make it a little awkward if they were the Asian elephant.
Can you take his picture?
Now, the African elephant does happen to have some pretty large ears, which coincidentally is shaped somewhat like Africa, the continent.
Hey, Mr. Elephant. You push the button on the top and take your picture.
Okay, Dad, she's eating grass.
He's eating the grass, you're right.
Why she's eating grass?
And he's eating his breakfast, just like after this we're going to eat. It's like he's not
Of course, now as the elephant is known for being the largest and heaviest animal on land, it can weigh in up to 13,000 pounds, which is 6.5 pounds. In fact, that means that they can grow to be about the same size and weight instead of an unleaded semi-truck. They can also eat up to 6% of their body weight daily, which caused them to be a bit of a pest problem to a group of farmers in Kenya. This goes when the elephants would want too close to the farmers' crops to eat what they perceived as a free buffet. Naturally, those farmers obviously did not like one bit, as they were losing a very large portion of their crops to the elephants. So they wanted to get rid of the elephants. But in fact, we here on the Harambe Wildlife Preserve did not want the elephants to lose their habitat. So we made use of some laws that we learned about elephants right here on the reserve. That would be that elephants are in fact afraid of bees. So we took that knowledge over to Kenya, where we built a very special fence around the crops called a bee fence or a beehive fence. So now when the elephants want too close to the crops instead of eating their buffet, they disturb the fence. This then disturbs the bees. The bees will then fly out and begin buzzing as they do. And then the elephants, upon hearing that the buzz will become spooked and scared, and then go around the crops. Now that program does also work out rather nicely for the farmers, and they have now gained a new crop, which would actually be that of the bees' honey. That if you would like to help support rebuilding that project, you would go online and order some of that imported honey from Kenya by simply looking up the name of that project. It's actually called the Elephant and the Bee Project. So now it does look as though we're making our way here into a bit of a flamboyance here. This would be a flamboyant breeder of flamingo. We may see the largest out of all flamingo species, standing at heights of roughly 5 feet tall, making them just a little bit larger than that of their Caribbean cousin.
Help? Well, we're taking a little break to look at the flamingos. Do you want to go sit by Auntie so you can see them better?
Of course, those are the least pink flamingos as well. No, that's not because they're pink when they hatch. In fact, shortly after hatching, they are gray. They won't actually get the pink coloration in their feathers until after they've eaten just enough beta-carotene and other carotenoids found in their diet.
Take the camera just like you do.
Now their diet does contain
Oh, it's pink. I love it.
You're not going to wear it around your neck. Mommy's got to hold it.
Found on the bottom of
We
it.
don't want to lose it, so wear it around your
Making
neck
them a
now.
bottom feeding animal. Also makes the answer does happen to be the Shrek
So we
term.
don't lose it.
Feathers
We
pink.
lost it.
So now this is where we have made our way here into white rhinoceros territory. I'll see you at the moment, but let's keep our eyes peeled for them. I definitely like to spend lots of time by mud wallows like that one to the left. So more often you say mud wallow like that one to the left is a mud bath. Of course, I don't think a mud bath turns the cleanest, although I guess it does work out okay for the white rhino. And the white rhino does get their name after their skin color, actually after their wide jaw, which is useful for eating the grass and other foliage growing on the ground. That's actually making them a grazing animal. Oh no, I think I spotted something to the left. Try to see if you can't spot the fastest animal on land or the cheetah way back to the left. Now the cheetah does run at speeds of up to 60 miles per hour. They can also go from 0 to 60 in about 3 seconds, which is an impressive acceleration. However, they are in fact a sprinter. They are really a marathon runner, as they can actually really only maintain that top speed of theirs for just a few hundred yards before they need to rest for a few minutes. In fact, a group of cheetah is actually called a coalition of cheetah. Now these long-furred antelope here to the left of us with no horns are called the waterbuck. Now the waterbuck's long fur secretes an oily substance, making their fur water resilient. These waterbuck out here do happen to be female, which you can tell because they don't have horns. As in fact, actually only the male waterbuck have horns. But now coming up ahead of us, I do happen to see it looks like we've entered into the throne of the jungle, where we can find the king and queen of the jungle up here lying about on their thrones. Both the king and the queen of the will spend the majority of their day asleep, as they can sleep anywhere between roughly 16 to 20 hours a day. That's on average about 18 hours a day that they sleep, which is certainly something I have taken to call a lion share of the day. And that is not for ladies, and this is after was used the time that they do sleep to conserve their energy for when they need to hunt. Although I guess I should specify it is normally the queen of the jungle doing all of the, or lioness who does all the hunting, while the male lion man will just stay back and protect the bride. These lions appear to look pretty young, which you can mainly tell by the male, as his mane does look pretty small. In fact, the mane on a male lion does actually grow all throughout his entire lifespan. And now it looks as though we made our way here into an area with very large burrows. This is first we may get to see the largest burrowing animal in all of Africa. Now, these animals have two sets of tusks, the larger of which are on top of their snout. What they used to take those large burrows on the left. And the tusks are underneath their jaw. Those ones are razor sharp, and these mostly for defense. They also like to back into their burrows when they sleep. That way they can help protect themselves much easier from predators. Now it looks as though here momentarily we will make our way here into a ranger outpost. That's called a warden's post. Now the rangers whom are stationed here enjoy spending quite a bit of time on some rather lengthy holidays, and when they go on vacation they often leave in charge of their camps some peculiar animals who tend to be quite perceptive. In fact, these animals out here happen to be so perceptive, I, for one, have taken to calling them the greatest of all time. Or the goat. So here I will present you now with the herd of adorable Nigerian indoor goats. Watch, you know where they came from? How about vacationing rangers? Now these goats, if you look at them real close and in their eyes, you may notice that they happen to have rectangular pupils, which gives them a very wide peripheral vision, far wider than the animal with circular pupils, such as ourselves would have. As well, I'd say they're very perceptive animals. Also, the only animal in the Harambe lion of the earth you can pet by your Disney's Animal Kingdom. If you want to pet one of those goats, all you're going to do is make your way into the Harambe village and look for Rescue Final Lunch. It's where you can board a short 5-minute train ride called the Wild Express and you go to the conservation station. Once you're at the conservation station, you're just going to make a short walk over to the affection section, which is where you'll find an affectionate image petting zoo that's got a Nigerian goat, among other animals you can, in fact, pet. But of course now it looks as though we've seen an awful lot of awesome and amazing animals out here on the Harambe Wildlife Reserve, and sadly, a very large number of those animals are suffering from habitat loss due to our modern society. We here at Disney are working tirelessly to preserve and protect all animals and their habitats for future generations, and we do that with programs like the Disney Conservation Fund, although we do still need as much help as we can get. Now, it is my hope to see these amazing animals on yours of audience inspire you to involve in any way you can, because honestly, if you don't, you really will. As you decide to offer a certain animals in this district, make it very easy to do so. Simply approach any merchandise location in the Harambe village, as Disney will match any donation given dollar for dollar, cent for cent, effectively doubling your donation, which is something I for one feel is just so very cool, eventually to myself. But now it looks as though we're nearing the edge of the Harambe, as I recognize that familiar music from the Harambe village. Unfortunately, that does mean that our time together has been cut just a little bit too short, unfortunately. If you have any wilderness explorers on board, you are going to want to go ahead and know the name of your safari vehicle. It's actually called the Simba 1. That is correct, my friends. It is the SIMBA Simba, just like the lion and followed by the number 1. Just like those goats whom we saw not too long ago. So you're going to go ahead and earn that safari badge right away. You take the trail on out of page 14
Thank you.
or 15 of your Wilderness Explorer's Handbook once we dock. But now it does look like here momentarily we are going to be parting ways here, sadly and unfortunately. We're sitting still. I honestly don't like to say that word goodbye. That's just because that word goodbye is far too sad and also far too final. So I'm going to leave you with the Swahili word of Kwaherini, meaning go well. So my friends, Kwaherini, may you'll go well, go wild, but of course not too wild. To make a positive impact out there on our planet, we'll do most of course. And then lastly, we'll have a wild rest of your day